My name's Dan. I'm 46. I fix things for a living: brakes, radiators, busted axles, engines that scream like they're trying to die. I own a small garage 20 miles outside Austin. It's not much, just 4 bays and a busted Coke machine, but I built it myself. Every greasy bolt and cracked knuckle earned. It's the kind of place that smells like sweat and gasoline and old radio static. I used to live upstairs in a room barely big enough for a bed and a space heater. Life was simple. Lonely, maybe, but it made sense. Then I met Caroline. She walked into the garage one afternoon with a busted headlight and a broken laugh. Said her ex never fixed anything: cars, pipes, promises. She needed someone who did. I replaced the bulb, checked her fluids, didn't charge her a dime. Didn't need to. Her smile paid for more than any invoice ever could. She had that look. Not soft, not flirty, but sharp. Like she'd seen enough of the world to know what was real and what was garbage. And for some reason, she looked at me like I was real. She came back a week later. Then again. Oil changes turned into coffee. Coffee turned into weekends. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. A year later, I moved in. Her place, not mine. 2-story townhouse with crown molding and a fridge that made its own ice. Too clean. Too quiet. Like a showroom someone forgot to live in. She had a daughter, Lacey, 16. Slouched posture, earbuds glued to her ears, sarcasm welded into every word she spoke. The kind of teenager who looked at the world like it owed her something and kept giving her secondhand knockoffs instead. Her father, the real one, wasn't around. Popped in every few months like a ghost through a cracked window. Took her to dinner, gave her a gift, posted a selfie. Then vanished. Poof. Gone. I figured maybe I could be different. Steady. Solid. The man who didn't leave. I started small. Offered rides to school. Helped with homework she barely glanced at. Paid for new shoes. Took her to the dentist when Caroline had to work late. I installed a lock on her bedroom door when she asked. She never thanked me, but I told myself that didn't matter. You don't fix a family overnight. You tighten the bolts. You wait. I took on more shifts at the shop. Caroline had lost hours at her office, something about downsizing. I didn't complain. I picked up the slack. Groceries, rent, internet, the new Wi-Fi booster because Lacey said the connection sucked upstairs. I paid for it all. Quietly. Automatically. Like a machine. At first, Caroline seemed grateful. She'd touch my arm during dinner. Say, "Thanks, baby." Small things. But then came the slow fade. I'd come home exhausted, and the house would be dark, dinner cold. I stopped being Dan the man. Became Dan the wallet. Dan the driver. Dan the placeholder. Lacey started pushing back harder. Ignoring me in the mornings. Leaving her dishes in the sink for me to clean. Rolling her eyes whenever I spoke about anything. I'd ask if she finished her homework, and she'd snap, "You're not my teacher." I'd ask her to turn her music down, and she'd crank it louder. Every interaction became a test, and I kept failing. Caroline didn't help. She hovered on the edges. Said things like, "She's just going through a phase," or "You know how teens are." No correction, no defense, just silence. She'd retreat to the bedroom, leave me alone in the kitchen with cold food and a colder daughter. And I started to realize something ugly. I wasn't part of the team. I was the help. Still, I kept showing up. Out of duty. Out of hope. Out of the kind of stubborn love that builds itself from blue-collar dreams. I figured if I kept putting in the hours, eventually I'd earn my place. Then came the phone call. I'd just come home from a 12-hour day under the hood of a Dodge with a bad transmission. My back was shot. My hands were stained black. Caroline was at yoga. I walked past Lacey's room and heard her laughing. Not just laughing, cackling. The carefree kind. I paused, leaned slightly against the wall. She was on speakerphone with a friend. They were talking about school, boys, plans for the weekend. Then her friend said something. I couldn't make it out. But Lacey replied, loud and clear. "He's not a man. He just lives here. Not a dad. Not anything." Laughter. Long, loud. Brutal. I didn't move. I just stood there, heart thudding against my ribs like it was trying to claw its way out. The drywall between us felt like paper. I could hear her bed creak as she flopped backward, still laughing, still talking. Not a man, not a dad, just a thing. I walked away, sat in the kitchen. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked. I waited for the door to open, for her to come down and say something else. But she didn't. Caroline came home an hour later, kissed the top of my head, poured herself wine, and turned on the TV. I said nothing, because what would I even say? Hey, your daughter said I'm nothing. Just thought you should know. I kept it to myself. The next day, I fixed Lacey's bike. The chain had slipped again. I scrubbed it clean, tightened the gear alignment, even put air in her tires. Left it by the door, hoping maybe, just maybe, that small kindness might be seen. She walked past it without a word, just looked at me and scoffed. I started noticing how invisible I really was. The coffee pot would be empty, and no one thought to refill it. The trash would overflow, and I'd be the only one dragging it to the curb. When packages came, I was the one signing. When the sink leaked, I was under it. When the bills came due, I was the one shifting money from one drained account to another. But in the eyes of that house, I was just air. Useful when needed, forgotten when not. Caroline stopped touching me, stopped looking at me like she used to. She'd mumble thanks when I paid for things, but her voice felt automatic, like a button pressed out of habit. Not warmth, not love. I started sleeping less, eating less. There was a quiet rot in the walls, a slow leak of respect, of recognition, and I was the only one who seemed to smell it. Some nights I'd sit in my truck outside the house and stare at the porch light. Wonder if I should just keep driving. I'd imagine life back at the shop. Greasy, cramped, but mine. Cot upstairs. A fridge full of leftover sandwiches and bad beer. No sarcasm. No contempt. No daughter judging me for being something I never claimed to be. No wife turning blind when it counted. But I stayed. Because that's what men like me do. We stay. We fix what's broken. Even when no one asks us to. Even when no one says thank you. Even when the people we fix it for pretend they built it all themselves. But now I see it for what it was. It wasn't family. It was a job I volunteered for with no paycheck and no pension. No respect. Just endless overtime. And even that would come to an end. It happened on a Tuesday. No holiday. No storm. No fight. Just the same dead rhythm as every day before it. I came home from the shop early, hoping, God knows why, that maybe a night off might shift something. That maybe presence could fix what absence hadn't. The house was quiet. Lacey was on the porch, hunched over her bike again, earbuds in. The chain was off. She was stabbing at it with a screwdriver like it had insulted her. I stepped outside, wiped my hands with the rag I kept in my back pocket. I said nothing, just crouched beside the bike and reached for the derailleur. She pulled her earbud out halfway and didn't look at me. It keeps skipping, she muttered, like that explained anything. I nodded, worked in silence. Chain was dry again, clogged with dirt. Same issue as last week. Same issue I had already fixed twice. I should have said something. Should have taught her how to clean it herself. But I didn't. I just fixed it. Again. When I was done, I gave the pedal a slow turn, watched it glide. Smooth. Perfect. I stood up, brushed the dust from my knees. There, I said. Lacey barely glanced at it. Whatever. Then she stood, looked me up and down. You're not even a real man, she said. Just like that. No build-up. No heat. No drama. Just that sentence dropped like a cinder block on glass. Then she walked inside. And I stood there, alone with her bike. Fixed, gleaming, loyal. I didn't follow her. I didn't call her name. I didn't yell or curse or throw anything like men do in movies when they snap. I went inside, quietly, walked past Caroline, who didn't even look up from her phone, up the stairs, into our bedroom. I pulled my duffel from the closet, filled it without folding anything. Just shirts, jeans, charger, the spare keys to the shop. My boots, my wallet. In the bathroom, I grabbed my razor and toothbrush. Left the cologne she bought me last Christmas. The one she said made me smell less mechanic. Why? Never liked it anyway. The house made no sound but its own breathing. Refrigerator hum. AC kicking on. Pipes creaking with age. I walked back downstairs. Caroline looked up. Going somewhere? She asked like it was casual. Yeah, I said. I am. Garage stuff. Her eyes flicked to the bag, then back to her screen. She already knew. She just didn't want to say it. I didn't explain. I didn't lie. I just walked out the front door, let it close behind me, and threw my bag into the truck. 30 minutes later, I was unlocking the back door of the shop. The cot upstairs still had my old blanket. The fridge still had that half-empty bottle of hot sauce nobody ever touched. I laid down fully dressed, closed my eyes, didn't sleep. That night, I sent one text to Caroline. Be a man then. That's what she said. That's what her daughter had said. That's what they both believed. That I wasn't one. Fine. Let them find out what a manless house feels like. The next day, my phone blew up. Missed calls. One text from Caroline. You went too far, Dan. She's just a kid. Just a kid. Just a kid with a mouth sharp enough to cut through steel. A kid old enough to spend my money, eat my food, use my Wi-Fi, ride the bike I fixed, live in the house I helped pay for. But too young, apparently, to know that words have weight. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled my name off the utilities. Internet, electric, gas. Every service I was bankrolling. The Instacart account deleted. Uber Eats logged out. Netflix, Spotify, Prime, all under my card. All gone now. Groceries, rides, background music. Let her father cover that. Let Caroline remember where comfort came from. Let them all remember how easy it is to forget who pays until the payment stops. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. I had mistaken silence for peace, obedience for respect, my patience for family. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't storming out. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a closing shift. I locked the door behind me, like I had done 1,000 times before. Difference was, this time the job wasn't the garage. It was them. And I was clocking out. The house didn't fall apart in one day. Took a week. First came the texts. Wi-Fi not working? Did you forget to pay for Amazon? Groceries didn't arrive? I didn't answer. Then came the calls. I let them ring. Finally, Caroline left a voicemail. Her voice wasn't angry, not yet. Just tired. Dan, I know you're upset. But you left us. You didn't talk to me. You didn't even try. Try? What had I been doing for 2 years? Every ride. Every bill. Every broken pipe. Every clogged sink. Every slammed door I didn't slam back. Every insult I swallowed. Every night I made dinner and scraped the leftovers alone. Try? They only noticed I was missing because the lights flickered and the fridge went empty. That was the measure of my presence. Function, not family. So no, I didn't try now. I watched. From the cot above the shop, I watched Lacey's posts drop off. Watched Caroline stop updating her stories. I knew the signs. The seams were splitting. The fantasy was leaking. I imagined Lacey trying to microwave something only to find the power flicked out for non-payment. I imagined Caroline calling customer support, sitting on hold, realizing the account wasn't in her name. I imagined them staring at each other, not with anger, with confusion, with dependency. They called me useless, invisible. But you don't miss furniture until it's gone. Then you realize you don't know how to stand without it. Day 8. Lacey showed up at the garage. No call. No heads up. She just appeared, dragging her busted-up bike across the gravel like a corpse on wheels. She didn't look angry. Didn't look smug. Just tired. Her hair was tied back. No earbuds. No makeup. She stood in the doorway like she didn't know how to enter. It's not working again, she said. I nodded to the corner. Tools are there, I said. Get started. She hesitated. Looked at the wrench like it might bite her. Then she got to work. She didn't ask questions. Didn't ask for help. Just worked. Clumsy. Slow. Wrong at first. I watched. Said nothing. After 30 minutes, she got the chain back on. Greasy hands, grease on her shirt. She wiped her palms on her jeans. Didn't say thank you. Didn't roll her eyes. Didn't say anything. Just rode off. And for the first time, I didn't feel hatred. I felt something closer to silence. Real silence. Not the kind filled with resentment. The kind filled with effort. Caroline came by the next evening. Parked out front. Sat in her car for a long time before knocking. She didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just looked at me like she finally saw something she'd missed. "I'm sorry," she said. "You were right. I should have said something. I should have stood up for you." I didn't nod. Didn't let her off the hook. "She misses you," she added. "She's different lately." I didn't speak, because this time words weren't enough. Not for me. I'd bled too much into that house. Given too much of myself. You can't just patch over a cracked foundation with apologies. You rebuild. Or you leave. And I had already left. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vengeful. I just wasn't their backup plan anymore. They wanted to know what a man looks like. A man is someone who stays until it costs him everything. And then learns to leave. Because being used is not the same as being needed. Because love without respect isn't love at all. It's debt. And I'm not in debt to anyone anymore. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for the rhythm of my absence to become undeniable. Not a shock. Not a crisis. Just a slow unraveling. Started small. A voicemail from Caroline. Soft-spoken, carefully worded. "Hey, just wanted to check in. Not about us, just things. House stuff. Lacey's school had an issue with the payment portal, and I can't seem to access it. Not sure if it's under your name? Can you call me back?" I didn't. 2 days later, another message. This one shorter. Tighter. "Dan, the trash company says the account's been closed. They won't pick up without a new setup. I'm trying, but it's a mess. Please just call me." She still hadn't said the words that mattered. Not sorry. Not respect. Just logistics. Still no reply. On the 3rd week, I stopped checking the voicemail altogether. They knew where to find me. And eventually they did. It was a Saturday. I had just finished replacing the brakes on a Honda that came in squealing like death. My hands were cracked. The smell of rust and oil hung heavy. I was sitting out back on the concrete, coffee in one hand, silence in the other. Lacey walked around the side of the building. No bike this time. Just her. Hoodie too big for her frame. Sleeves pulled down over her fists. No earbuds. No attitude. Just her. I didn't stand. Just looked at her. She stood there for a long time like she didn't know what she was supposed to be. "I need help," she said. Not dramatic. Not desperate. Just flat. Honest. I didn't move. Let the words hang between us. She shifted, eyes on the ground. "My FAFSA got messed up. School emailed. Said something about missing info. I tried to fix it. But I think you're the one who did it before. I don't know the login." Still, I didn't move. She looked up finally. I was not angry this time. Just raw. Exposed. "I'm not asking for money," she added. "I just need help figuring it out." The old me, the one who bent every time, wanted to reach for my laptop. Wanted to fix it. Wanted to say, "Yeah, sure," and make it all disappear. But that man had gone quiet. I stood slowly, wiped my hands on my rag, and nodded toward the workbench. "Bring it," I said. She blinked. "What?" "Your laptop. Bring it in. I'll show you how to fix it. You'll do the work." She hesitated, then nodded. Ran off like she was afraid I might change my mind. 10 minutes later she was back, laptop in hand. We sat at the corner of the shop office, surrounded by receipts and carburetor parts. I pointed. She clicked. I corrected. She clicked again. And we sat in silence like two mechanics fixing a machine made of choices. An hour later it was done. She didn't thank me, but she didn't roll her eyes either. When she stood to leave, she looked at me for a long time. "I didn't mean what I said," she whispered. "I didn't ask which part. Because they always mean it when they say it. They only regret it when it echoes." Later that week, Caroline came by again. This time she brought lunch. chicken and biscuits from the place I used to love. She walked in like nothing had changed, like she hadn't spent 2 years watching me rot under her roof while pretending not to notice. "Lacey told me what you did," she said, setting the bag down on the counter. I didn't look at her. "She's different lately," she went on. "Quiet, more grounded." I still didn't speak. She sighed, pulled up a stool. "I should have defended you," she said. "From the beginning." Now I looked at her. She looked tired. Not makeup tired. Soul tired. The kind that comes from holding together something you know is already cracked. "I let her walk all over you," she said. "I let myself believe that if I stayed out of it, things would just fix themselves. But they didn't. They got worse. You were the only one holding it all together. And when you left," she didn't finish. She didn't need to. I picked up the biscuit, ate in silence. She didn't ask me to come back. That surprised me. She just said, "I get it now." And for once, I believed her. A few nights later, I walked past the garage and saw a light still on. I stepped inside, and there she was, Lacey, at my workbench. Her hands were covered in grease. Her eyes locked on the half-taken-apart chain from her bike. She didn't look up when I entered. "Thought I'd try fixing it myself," she said. I didn't speak. She held up a wrench. "I think I stripped the bolt," she added, almost like a joke. I walked over, took a look. She had clean through. "Wrong size," I said. She nodded. "I figured." Then she reached into her bag and pulled out the right one. I almost smiled. She fixed it. Didn't ask for help. Didn't gloat. Just worked. We stood in silence while she reassembled it. No words. Just tools and breath. After she was done, she washed her hands at the utility sink. I handed her a clean rag. She wiped, paused, then looked at me. "Thanks." A real one this time. Small, but real. Then she left, and I stood there long after she was gone. I didn't go back to the house. I stayed in the shop. Nights were quiet. Radiator still knocking. The smell of fuel thick in the air. But it was mine. And in that silence, I started to feel whole again. They came around more. Not often. Not with tears or big speeches. Just presence. Caroline brought food sometimes. Sat with me while I ate. Talked about her day. Never asked for anything. Lacey came by on weekends. To fix things. Or learn how to. Never called me Dad. But she didn't call me nothing either. I didn't need titles anymore. Just peace. And for the first time in years I had some. Because now they came to me. Because now they knew what absence costs. Because now I wasn't footing the bill for a house that didn't know my name. I'd love to say we fixed it all. That one day Lacey hugged me and said she was sorry. That Caroline stood on a porch and begged me to come home. That they changed overnight. But this isn't a movie. This is life. Some cracks don't close. They stay open so the air can remind you what it costs to keep swallowing yourself. Still, something shifted. And maybe that's enough. I don't know what the future holds. But I know this. If they want me in their lives, they'll have to meet me halfway. No more fixing bikes in silence while being told I'm not a man. No more paying for warmth in a house built on cold. They saw what it was like without me. And now they'll have to choose. Not with words. With action. Because I'm done carrying people who call me invisible. Done bleeding for people who measure value in silence. This time, if they want me, truly want me, they'll have to earn it. The way I did. One bolt. One meal. One thankless night at a time. Now I live above the shop. Radiator still knocks at night. Place smells like oil and metal and loneliness. But it's honest. No one rolls their eyes when I walk in. No one talks over me at dinner because there is no dinner. Just takeout on the hood of a car I haven't finished. There's peace in that. In the quiet. In the kind of solitude that doesn't ask you to prove yourself just to exist. It's funny, isn't it? How long I let them shape me, shrink me, make me smaller, quieter, more useful. Like if I just waited long enough, bent the right way, they'd finally let me into the room I was paying to heat. They never did. Because people don't change for free. You have to take something away first. Lacey still stops by. Not often. Not for warmth. But for tools. For instructions. She brings her own bike now, not the old one. A newer one she bought herself. Cheap secondhand. But hers. She's learning. Slowly. Not just how to fix things. How to take responsibility. How to hold something broken without blaming someone else for the cracks. She still doesn't call me Dad. I don't need her to. That title got poisoned somewhere along the way. Tangled in resentment and bloodlines and things I was never allowed to be. Now she just calls me Dan. And somehow that hurts less. The last time she came, she stayed longer than usual. She didn't talk much, just tinkered. Tightened a bolt. Tested the brakes, tried and failed and tried again. When she left, she turned back at the door and said, "You were right. About a lot." Then she left. That was it. Not a hug. Not a tear. Just a line. But it stayed with me. Because it wasn't for her. It was for me. Caroline comes around too. Not as often. The distance between us now isn't physical. It's something else. Something set in stone the night she watched her daughter cut me down and said nothing. She talks like we could start again. Slow. Careful. Says things like, "We didn't know what we had." But that's a lie. They knew. They just didn't think I'd ever walk away from it. She asks if I'm dating anyone. I say no. She smiles like that means something. It doesn't. I'm not punishing her. I just don't trust her anymore. Because love without defense isn't love at all. It's witness. And she witnessed my slow erosion like it was entertainment. I don't need a partner who watches me disappear. I need someone who says, "Stop. This man matters." She never did. Not when it counted. People ask me if I miss it, the house, the routine, the idea of family. I don't lie. Sometimes, yeah. I miss the version of it I imagined. The one where I came home and they looked up. Said, "We're glad you're here." The one where a 16-year-old girl looked past her own bitterness and saw the man who drove her to school, paid for her textbooks, fixed the bike she kept breaking. The one where a woman who shared my bed also shared my battles. That family never existed. I built it in my head and lived in the ruins until I left. I look around the shop now, walls stained with time, tools lined up like soldiers, everything smelling like something real. And I realize I've never felt more like a man than I do now. Not because I provide. Not because I fix things. But because I left when staying meant losing myself. That's the part no one tells you about manhood. It's not about enduring everything. It's about knowing when endurance becomes self-erasure. They said I wasn't a real man. They said I wasn't a father. They said I was just someone who lived there. And in the end, they were right. I was just someone who lived there. But I was the one who kept the lights on. I was the one who drove the car when the weather turned bad. I was the one who stayed up to reset the router. I was the one who showed up. And when I left, everything fell apart. Sometimes I get calls from other men, friends, co-workers, guys who've walked into families half-built and told to finish the job without a hammer. They say, "How did you know when it was time to go?" I tell them the truth. It's when they stop seeing you. Not hating, not yelling, just not seeing. When you're the ghost that stocks the fridge. When you're the reason there's heat in the winter, but no one thinks to say it out loud. When your name becomes a punchline, or worse, a silence. That's when you pack the bag. Not because you're giving up, but because they already have. I've learned that respect is louder than love. Love will tell you it's sorry. Respect will never make you beg for the apology. Love will say, "Come home." Respect will make sure you never want to leave. They said I wasn't a man. But when I left, the internet went out. When I left, the fridge went empty. When I left, the words started to come. Too late, but honest. That's what a man is. He doesn't slam the door. He just stops holding it open for people who wipe their feet on his welcome. I don't know what comes next. Maybe I'll die alone in this garage, found by a customer wondering why no one answered the bell. Maybe I'll meet someone who sees me without needing me to bleed for it. Maybe Lacey will one day introduce me to someone and say, "This is Dan. He raised me." Maybe she won't. It doesn't matter. because I've stopped needing closure from people who never offered respect. I gave them everything, and when I stopped, they noticed. That's all the proof I need. So now I ask you, anyone listening, anyone who's been in this seat, was I wrong? Was I cruel for walking out of a house that only saw my value when the power went off? Was I bitter for cutting off the money when the mouth calling me useless still drank the milk I bought? Or was it finally time? Was it finally fair to say enough? Because here's the truth I learned too late. Being there doesn't make you a man. Leaving when staying means dying slowly does. So tell me, would you have endured it? Or would you have walked too?